Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I just wanted to take this opportunity to let you know we only have 4 weeks left until 2022 is over. However, 5 weeks until the beginning of 2023. So, between now and then, I want you to write down what your goals are for 2023, just as you did when 2022 came. However, with the year 2023, it's going to be a much better, yet much prosperous banner year, and one on which we have not had before. So, if you have something in mind as far as your goals are concerned, please type it in right here in this series of messages that I'm about to be doing. And please let your family, let your friends, and even your buddies know about, and even your buddies or the next of kin, or let's just say a family friend, about this. So this way, they will be able to understand how you can meet your goals. But in the meantime, I want to get into the series of messages on which I will be talking about just trust God, especially when you're facing unemployment, foreclosure, and bankruptcy. Now, I'm going to get to the bottom of this right now. The loss of employment and or income is one of the most distressing events in life, especially for those supporting a family, of course. Now, you have to understand foreclosure on the family home or having to declare bankruptcy due to unemployment adds additional fear, uncertainty, and emotional turmoil for the Christian man and or woman facing unemployment, foreclosure, or bankruptcy. There could be additional doubts about God's goodness and his promises to provide for his children. Now, my question to you is this: how is the Christian to react to these catastrophic life events? Another question is, what biblical principles can we apply to the loss of a home or a job and benefits, such as health life insurance, retirement, and the list goes on and on and on? I can explain to you that first and foremost, it's very important to understand that God has ordained work for its mankind. Work is described in the Bible as a beneficial in in that it provides for our needs. So if you have your Bible or your Bible app, please mark these scriptures down to Proverbs 14:23, then mark Ecclesiastes 2:24, then Ecclesiastes 3:13, and Ecclesiastes 5:18-19. And and they give us the resources to share with others in need. Ephesians 4:28. Now, Paul reminded the believers in Thessalonica that anybody who was not willing to work should not eat. Please read 2 Thessalonians 3:10, and that he himself worked at tent making so as not to be a burden on anybody. Here are the scriptures for you to read when the sermon is over. I have Acts 18:3 for you. Add 2 Corinthians 11:9. However, loss of unemployment should not be an excuse for laziness, and all due diligence should be exercised to find other employment as quickly as possible. Proverbs 6:9-11. Mark that down, please, and read it when you're done. At the same time, it may not be possible to find a position equal in pay and status to one that was lost. In these cases, Christians should not allow pride to prevent them from taking jobs in other fields, especially if it means lower status or lesser pay, at least for the time being. We ought to also be willing to accept help from other believers and our churches, perhaps in exchange for work that needs to be done in homes, yards, and church facilities. Like the churches we have available all around the area, such as 242 Church, Radiant Church, we got Grace Church, and Accelerate Church, Vineyard and Arbor Bridge. Each and every one of these churches are all located in Ann Arbor. But most of all, we have the following churches in Ypsilanti, like Hope Community Church. We have Christian Life Center, and we also have Bethesda Bible Church uh, in Ypsilanti, Michigan, so to speak. That even perhaps in exchange for work that needs to be done in home, yards, business, and church facilities. Now, extending and accepting a helping hand in these times is a blessing to those who gives as well as to those who receives and exhibits the law of Christ, which is love for one another. Mark, please read and mark Galatians 6:2 and John 13:34. Synonymously, especially with the loss of the family home through foreclosure or bankruptcy, can be the time of blessing for the family, a time when parents and children close ranks and become more keenly aware of their love for one another and the important things in life. The four things that you should know are as follows: faith, family, and community. Also, less focus on material things that have no eternal value and can disappear in a heartbeat. For this moment, God can also use these circumstances to remind us of the truth spoken by Jesus in Matthew 6:19-20 and refocus our hearts on heavenly treasure. Above all, renewing our faith and trusting God's promises is of utmost importance during times of financial stress and or crises. Revisiting passages that speak of God's faithfulness to his children will strengthen and encourage us when the future looks bleak, so to speak. 1 Corinthians 10:13 reminds us that God is faithful and will not test us beyond our ability to bear it and will provide a way out of the trial. This way out may mean a new and better job that comes up right away. It may also mean a lengthy period of unemployment during which God's faithfulness in providing our daily bread is shown to us. It may mean a new home, or it may mean living in reduced circumstances with relatives for a short period of time. In each case, the way out is really the way through the trial, in which we learn of God's faithful provision as he walks by our side through the entire crisis. When the time of testing is over, our faith will be strengthened and we will be able to strengthen others by bearing strong testimony to the faithfulness of our God. Well, it's very important that even in most hard circumstances like these, families and close relatives have lost their jobs mainly due to the stress they have suffered, not to mention the amount of pressure they have in them. However, if we look at God and in hoping we try to retweak it a bit and try to say things that and try to get help in many ways, chances are it might get better. However, the bottom line is you just have to learn that it comes a time when these tough circumstances may come directly towards your family when they're not going to be able to help you and they're not going to be able to stay long. So chances are, by the time they're gone, you're going to be out on your own. And even more serious than the fact is, by the time you purchase a home. Now, let's face it, when you get married and start by raising a family of your own, have kids on your own, um, just like your parents did when they got married, they purchased a home or rent an apartment and they started it out by having a family. It takes on a lot of responsibility. However, when it takes a lot of believing in the many miracles that God is trying to get to you in any way. Because if you pray each day and think positively, chances are you might get better, and your family won't have to suffer. Well, thank you very much. You have a blessed night. Goodbye.